Okay, so let's review 2 trig rules that we know, and then we're going to fill in 4 that we are learning right now. So the 2 trig rules we know, of course, are that the derivative of sine is cosine, and the derivative of cosine is negative sine. So here are the other 4 rules. The derivative of tangent is secant squared. The derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant squared. The derivative of secant is secant times tangent. And the derivative of cosecant is negative cosecant times cotangent. So you do want to memorize these rules. By the way, if this has not come up yet, you can figure out the derivative of all of these by using like quotient rule. Like tangent is sine over cosine. So if you were to use the quotient rule, that would be the derivative of sine, which is cosine, times cosine, minus the derivative of cosine, which is negative sine, times sine, over cosine squared. And then you get cosine squared plus sine squared, which is 1 over cosine squared. Oh my goodness, that's secant squared. So if you are curious about like the proofs of these, as long as you know what the derivative of sine and cosine are, and you know what the quotient rule is, you can come up with the other ones, right? Okay, so anyway, you should notice something, and that is some tricks to remember. So let's start with the fact that I wrote these in columns in a specific way. You'll notice that in my left-hand column, I have sine, tangent, and secant. In my right-hand column, I have cosine, cotangent, and cosecant. In the right-hand column, what's the derivative of anything with a co in front? Negative. So if it has a co, the derivative will be negative. So derivatives of cofunctions are negative. Okay, so what about like how do you remember everything else? Okay, so it's called super spicy tacos or super sassy teachers. I don't really care, whatever you want to call it. SST. And what SST stands for is secant, tangent. Okay. All right, it's kind of hard to do without being able to see my fingers, but I am going to do my best. Let's suppose we wanted to find the derivative of secant. The derivative of secant is secant tangent. Let's say I want to find the derivative of tangent. The derivative of tangent is secant secant, aka secant squared. So SST tells you that the derivative of secant is secant tangent. The derivative of tangent is secant secant, aka secant squared. And then if you wanted to do your cos, just change it to cosecant, and put a negative in the middle, and cotangent. The derivative of cotangent is negative cosecant times cosecant, or negative cosecant squared. And the derivative of cosecant is negative cosecant cotangent. So the SST rule kind of works with cotangent and cosecant as well. You just have to put a negative in the middle. Okay? So memorize these 6 trig derivatives along with your product rule, quotient rule, and chain rule for this chapter.